Hello to everyone in the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Cathedral community and all of our friends. This is Father Jonathan. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to continue our series on the lives of the saints. And on this, the 24th of April, we celebrate the memory of our Holy Father Wilfrid, Bishop of York. Having been gifted with divine favors from his birth, St. Wilfrid entered the famous monastery of Lindisfarne at the age of 13. This was the center of Celtic tradition in Northumbria, and he rapidly became an object of admiration for his rigor in Cenobitic observances and his passion for the study of the scriptures. After some years, he took a pilgrimage to Rome in the company of St. Benedict Biscop, with a view to studying the Roman ecclesiastical traditions. After having venerated the holy places of the apostolic city, he was instructed by Archdeacon Boniface in the interpretation of the Holy Gospels, liturgical uses, and the calculation of the feast of Easter that the Celts of Ireland and Britain refused to accept, and which was to become the subject of so many troubles in the young Anglo-Saxon Church. On completing his studies, he received the Pope's blessing and set out on the way home, staying for 3 years in Lyons with Archbishop Delphinus, who appreciated him and who perfected his instruction in the sacred sciences. Returning to England in 658, he was named the abbot of the monastery of Ripon and began to battle ardently for the abandonment of liturgical particularities of the Celtic Church and the adoption of Roman customs. After the ecclesiastical synod of Whitby in 664, which saw the triumph of the Roman party, he was named Archbishop of Northumbria by his friend and spiritual son, Archfrid, son of King Oswy, suzerain of the Anglo-Saxon Federation, and chose as his see not Lindisfarne, but York, where the first missionaries sent from Rome with St. Paulinus had established themselves. Refusing to be consecrated in England for fear of controversy, he went to Gaul to be ordained by his friend Agilbert, Bishop of Paris. But when he returned to his country, he was surprised to learn, following the return of King Oswy through Celtic usage, his episcopal see had been occupied by St. Chad. In order to avoid new dissensions in the house of God, Wilfrid preferred to retire to the solitude of the monastery of Ripon and to leave it to God to do him justice. As yet, he was soon solicited by King Wulfar of Mercia to consolidate the faith in his kingdom. After having found several monasteries and having taught the true faith, he was sent for by the King of Kent to direct the Diocese of Canterbury, which was still without its bishop. At the end of 3 years, in 669, when Theodore became Archbishop of Canterbury and Primate of the Anglo-Saxon Church, he wanted to repair the injustice done to Wilfrid and persuaded Chad to retire to the monastery of Lastingham in order to leave his see free for Wilfrid, which he gladly did. Wilfrid, taking up the direction of the episcopal see once more, showed an untiring zeal in founding churches and monasteries and educating his people, and in the evangelical commandments, strengthening their faith by his preaching and the power of his miracles. After some years of happy collaboration between the Bishop of York and Egfrid, the new king of Northumbria, the Holy Queen Etheldreda, who had aided the saint in the foundation of the majestic monastery of Hexham, renounced the world under his influence and embraced the monastic life. This development unleashed the bitterness of Egfrid, who from that time was set upon the downfall of the holy bishop. Profiting from the absence of St. Wilfrid, the Archbishop of Canterbury, pressed by the king, deposed the Archbishop of York and divided his diocese into 3 new sees. Obtaining no redress from the princes, Wilfrid undertook another journey to Rome, but he was cast by a tempest onto the shores of Frisia, where he began to evangelize its inhabitants, thus preparing the way for the work of St. Willibrord and the conversion of Germany. Arriving in Rome, justice was done to him, but the division of his diocese was maintained. When he returned to England after having participated in the council called by the Holy Pope Agathon against the Monothelites, 680, the king of Northumbria refused to accept the Roman decision, and the bishop was thrown into prison. Released after 9 months of incarceration, he went to evangelize the southern Saxons of Sussex. The same day on which he administered baptism to the leaders of the nation, the last in England to remain pagan, he put an end by his prayer to a long and deadly drought, and thereby brought the conversion of the greater part of the people. The king gave him the gift of some land, and he founded a monastery for the monks who had followed him, and for the neophytes who desired to embrace the angelic life after his example. On the death of King Egfrid in 686, his brother Alfred reestablished the man of God over the whole of his diocese. Coming to the end of his days, the Archbishop of Canterbury, St. Theodore, was reconciled with him and humbly asked his forgiveness. Wilfrid continued to show himself as an intransigent defender of the divine law without respect of persons. His adversary succeeded, however, in outwitting the king, and 5 years after he was reestablished, they tried again to divide up his diocese. Wilfrid was exiled once more to Mercia, where the king confided the diocese of Lichfield to him for 11 years. In 703, the king of Northumbria and the new Archbishop of Canterbury decided to relieve him of all episcopal functions and assign him to the monastery of Ripon. Once again, Wilfrid made an appeal to Rome, and leaving for the continent, he undertook the journey on foot through Frisia, Neustria, Austria, Lombardy. After having declared that such a shepherd should not be separated from his flock, and they ordered the Archbishop of Canterbury to re-establish Wilfrid and depose the bishops who were occupying the diocese of York and Hexham. On his return to England, the Archbishop of Canterbury accepted the Pope's decision, was reconciled with Wilfrid, and the King of Mercia committed himself to respecting his authority, but changed his opinion. Some short time afterwards, the king fell gravely ill, and confessing his sin on his deathbed, ordered that his successor make peace with the Bishop of York. Yet immediately after his death, the king and the nomination of his successor, the latter declared that, if the saint did not leave Northumbria in 6 days, all his supporters would be put to death. By the just decree of Providence, this unworthy prince was himself thrown out 6 months after his ascension, and at an assembly held near Ripon, it was declared that there would be henceforth be an alliance and perpetual peace between the king, the Northumbrian nobles, and Bishop Wilfrid. The latter had notwithstanding to be content with his 2 principal monasteries of Ripon and Hexham, the second of which became an episcopal see, and for long years gained the admiration of the whole West by the splendor of its buildings. With peace finally established, St. Wilfrid spent the last 4 years of his life in the monastery of Hexham, peacefully preparing himself to be before the Lord. He gave his soul into God's hands on the 24th of April, 709, at the end of 45 years of tormented episcopate, which marked a decisive step in the formation of Christianity and of the English nation. He delivered it from the peculiarism of Celtic practice to prepare for its universal mission, in particular for the evangelization of the Germanic peoples beyond the Rhine and the Danube. St. Wilfrid was the founder of dozens of monasteries and introduced the general observances of the rule of St. Benedict in England. He was also the spiritual father of a large number of male and female saints who left the court for the peace of the cloister. His body, first laid to rest in Ripon, where he had worked many miracles, was later transferred to the Canterbury Cathedral. By the prayers of St. Wilfrid, Bishop of York. May the Lord God have mercy on us and save us. God bless you. We're here for you. We love you dearly. Don't hesitate to reach out. Call us, email us, leave us a message on social media. Leave us a note in the comment section. If you'd like to support this ministry, remember to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. Again, God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of your day.